This video will guide you through setting up the Blender Blocks asset library, making the blocks readily available for all your Blender projects. When you download the Gumroad folder, this is what you'll receive. It's a zipped folder, so you'll need a utility such as 7-zip to extract its contents first. Inside, you'll find the asset library blend file along with the catalog text files. The catalog text files serve as metadata, allowing Blender to organize and display assets correctly within the asset browser. Each asset category is contained within its own blend file, which helps keep different asset types organized and accessible. You'll also find template files, which we'll explore towards the end of this video. First, let's set up the asset library. If you haven't set up an asset library in Blender before, that's fine. It's a straightforward process. An asset library is a structured collection of reusable assets, such as models, materials, and node setups, which Blender can access globally across multiple projects. This system allows for efficient asset management without needing to append or link files manually. These asset files can be stored in a permanent location. For this tutorial, I've saved these files in a dedicated project folder. You can click to highlight the file path, then use Ctrl+C to copy it, or right-click and select Copy Path. We'll need this path shortly. Now let's move into Blender. If you don't have Blender installed, go to blender.org and download from there. The installation is straightforward. From here, let's navigate to the Edit menu and open Preferences. Under the File Paths tab, locate the Asset Library section. This area lists all registered asset folders, each pointing to a specific directory. The import methods can be linking, referring to referencing an asset from an external file without duplicating it. Appending involves importing a fully editable copy of an asset into the current project. Any changes made to the appended asset will not affect the original file, making it ideal for cases where you need to customize an asset without altering its source. Append reuse data works similarly to appending, but attempts to reuse existing data blocks if an identical asset is already present in the project. Let's add our Blender Blocks library path. Click the plus icon to add a new entry. This will open Blender's File Explorer. Navigate to the directory where you saved the block library. Inside this folder, you'll find multiple blend files, each representing a category of assets. Then it's just a matter of clicking and adding this as an asset library. This will adopt the folder name and display it here, but it can be renamed if necessary. Now let's close Preferences. Let's select the default cube and press X to delete it. Then if we hover the cursor over the edge of the timeline, we can click and drag this up to expand the editor. From the editor type drop-down, let's switch this to an asset library. Then from the library drop-down, we can select our Blender Blocks library. So now all our assets are linked within this file, with each category of object neatly listed for easy access. Let's shift into a top view in the scene, and also switch to an orthographic view for precise placement. Then if we come over to the categories, there's one here called Floor Plan Template. This one, we're going to drag it into the scene to kick things off. Let's press Shift+S and choose Selection to Cursor to position it at the center of the world. This is a helper object, and if we open the Modifiers tab, we'll see it's a geometry node object with 3 fields. The first is Wall Thickness, which lets us define how thick our room walls will be in meters. Then we have Interior Room Length and Room Width, controlling the inner dimensions of our space. Let's press N and open the sidebar for a moment. It's best not to tweak this floor plan object using the dimensions here in the sidebar. If we click and drag in the x-axis, the walls lose proportion due to uneven scaling. We'll right-click to cancel that. Only use the fields on the modifier here. That's critical for maintaining accuracy. So for the wall thickness, we can input 0.3 meters. Then for the room width, this will be 3.5 meters. Tab into the Y field, and this will measure 2.5 meters. The room length and width refer to the inside dimensions of the room, excluding wall thickness. This will be a bathroom, so let's head over and start with a bath. It's as simple as dragging and dropping the bath asset into the scene. Next, we can move on and find the shower tray category. If we hover the cursor over an asset, it will display the full name, which is helpful for identifying specific items. If we want to expand this editor, we can press and hold Ctrl and hit the spacebar. This will make it full screen, giving us a clearer view of our options. From the size drop-down menu, we can increase or decrease the icon display size. The larger we make them, the more of the asset name we'll see, though this can get a little bit oversized. We'll set this back to maybe 100 for a balanced view. We can press Ctrl plus spacebar again, or use the back to previous button up top to revert. If we need a certain size, use the search bar. How about a tray measuring 1000 millimeters? This will filter the list of trays to 1000 in the name. So a 1000 by 800 tray should work fine. Let's drag this into the scene. To snap these precisely, let's head up to the snap menu, and from here we can switch to vertex mode. We're going to zoom in for accuracy. If we press G, then press Ctrl and snap to the corner vertex on the wall, we can ensure perfect alignment. Next, let's open the tilet's category. We'll always want to click the X to clear any active filter. For the tilet, let's drag this one into the scene. Now, we have a few ways to rotate objects. In the sidebar, we'll find the rotation fields, and if we click and drag in the Z rotation field, the object will spin around the Z axis. Clicking into this field, we can input 180 degrees to orientate it correctly. We can also rotate objects in the scene by pressing R to activate rotation, then specify the axis, in this case Z. Then input the value, so type 180 and hit enter. So again, let's press R, input 180 and enter. Let's snap it against the wall. So press G, then Y, press and hold Ctrl and we can snap it flush against the wall. Then to nudge it closer to the corner, press G, then X, and move it nearer before left clicking to confirm. Next up, let's open the vanities category. Here we're going to select this wall hung 1210mm unit. Drop that into the scene. Then in the Z rotation field, we'll input 180 degrees. For snapping this time, let's use a snap point. So press G to move, then press B to set a base snap point. It's going to be this bottom corner. To ensure precision, we can press and hold Alt and zoom in. Pressing Alt lets us navigate while snapping. As we hover the cursor, the snap point highlights on the corner. So just click to set it. Then pressing Alt will zoom back out. Let's zoom in over to the tilet here, and left click to snap it to the corner vertex on the tilet. Then let's shift this 300mm away, so press G, then X, input -0.3 and enter, since this direction is along the negative x-axis. The values we input here are in meters, as that's Blender's default unit. If we open the Scene tab and expand the units area, we'll see Blender is set to metric with a unit scale of 1, and the length is set to meters. By changing the length setting to millimeters, you'll notice the dimensions update to display in millimeters across the interface. This also means if we press G, then X, this time we can input 300 directly as millimeters. Now I'll quickly move the vanity back 300mm. Changing the length setting adjusts how dimensions are displayed and inputted, offering flexibility. If you prefer working in imperial units, you can do that too. Switch the system drop-down to imperial. Then from the length drop-down, choose feet or inches. Let's try inches. Now dimensions show in inches, and we can input imperial values. For this video, I'll switch back to metric and set it to millimeters for consistency. One thing to note, if we open the modifiers tab and select the floor plan template, the fields on the modifier still display in meters. So we must input values in meters here, regardless of the scene unit setting. Just keep that in mind. So next, let's open the doors category. For this, we want a 950 door, so we'll search 950 in this search field. Since this wall is 300mm thick, we'll find and drag this matching door into the scene. Then just press G, then Y, press and hold Ctrl and we can snap it flush against the wall. Now we're left with these edges on the floor plan when we'd rather see the opening. We'll tackle a way to remove them shortly. So let's switch to Windows, clear the filter by clicking X, then search 800. This one, 800 by 300, looks good. We can drag and drop it into the scene. Press G, then Y, and snap it here. With the main objects in position, the floor plan template is great for initial layout, but we won't want these edges in the render. So let's explore a quick replacement method. Let's press Shift plus S and set the cursor to World Origin. Then let's head over to the Add menu, and under Mesh we can add a plane. This needs to be larger than the floor plan, so let's press S and scale it up generously. The exact size isn't critical as long as it covers everything. Up top we can switch into Edit mode. Press Tab to toggle between Edit and Object mode. We can press A to ensure all vertices are selected. We want to subtract the floor plan template, the door and the window objects from the plane. So over in the outliner, let's press and hold Ctrl and select the floor plan template object. Then Ctrl select the door. Finally Ctrl select the window. We can press F3 to bring up the search bar and type Knife Project. Select this tool from the list. What this tool does is project the silhouette of the selected objects onto our plane, cutting out their shape precisely. So now, if we press the / key to isolate this object, it's the simplest way to remove the faces we don't need. Up top, switch to Face Select mode. We'll select and remove the faces we don't want, so press Shift and pick these 3 large faces, forming the room interior and the outside. Then we're going to press and hold Shift and drag select all the window faces. Repeat that for the door faces, selecting all of these. Now we'll press X and choose Delete Faces. So now we're left with our new wall geometry. Let's return to Global View by pressing the / key again. Then we can tab back to Object mode. What we're going to do is select the floor plan template and in the outliner hide its visibility and also disable it in renders by clicking the camera icon. It could be deleted at this stage, but you might want to tweak the layout later, so hiding it is the safer bet. Unlike these assets that don't require a material since they rely on freestyle for rendering, this wall object can have a material applied. If we select this object and head to the Materials tab, let's add a new material to it. We can click in the name field and rename it Wall. Then let's click into the color swatch and set it to fully black, RGB values of 0,0,0 for a stark contrast. Now to ensure these assets render correctly, let's open the Render Properties tab over here. Scroll down towards the bottom. We need to enable Freestyle by checking the box. Freestyle is Blender's non-photorealistic rendering engine that adds edge lines to objects, perfect for technical drawings like floor plans. There are additional Freestyle settings in the View Layer tab that let us tweak properties like line color, thickness, and edge detection options, but the defaults work well for this. Just having Freestyle enabled is key. The second thing we need to do is open the World tab. Then adjust the background color to fully white, RGB values of 1,1,1, so the asset stands out as they render with the default black Freestyle lines against this backdrop. Next, we need to set up the camera, so let's select it in the scene. In the rotation field, let's click and drag across the XYZ values to highlight them. Then input 0 for each to have the camera face straight downward. Then let's press Shift plus S and choose Selection to Cursor to move it to the world origin. We'll shift this up on the Z-axis, so in the rotation field, let's input 5000 mm to ensure it's well above our object and not intersecting them. Let's click the camera icon to jump into camera view. Over in the camera properties, let's change this to an orthographic camera type for a flat, distorted-free perspective. We can set the orthographic scale here by clicking and dragging to frame up the floor plan. Adjust that value as needed. There's an add-on called Scale It I created that lets us set up paper sizes for printing, for example A3 in landscape. We can define a scale, say 1 to 15, and hit apply to update the settings. That adjusts the output resolution to match the A3 aspect ratio. This add-on streamlines the setup, ensuring the renders match the approximated real-world scale. Once the camera is set up, it's time to render our image. We can head up to the render menu and select Render Image. Give it a moment to process. Here we get a floor plan style image, but Blender's image previewer isn't the sharpest for detail, so let's first save this image. Let's go to Image and pick Save. Find a location. In the name field, let's give this a name like Bathroom Floor Plan. Then we can open this off screen in an image editor for a clearer look at the result and get a better sense of the output. Here, the acid edges render crisply, and we can see our walls have rendered a solid black after applying the material. If I open back up the templates folder for a moment, here we have a bathroom and kitchen example. The bathroom is the one we just created, so let's open the kitchen file. Here, the assets have been used to lay out a kitchen. Freestyle is enabled and this file is ready to render. The floor plan object is still in the scene, but it can be used to project onto a plane if necessary. So that's it. Use Blender to quickly lay out and render 2D floor plans using the assets from the pack. If you want to include dimensions, check out the Measure It video. You'll find a link to that in the description below.